Nathaniel Hayes stood at the floor-tiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights blur through the rain. At 34, he had built a tech empire worth billions. But tonight, none of that mattered. The lawyer's words echoed in his mind like a death sentence. You have exactly 30 days to marry, Mr. Hayes. If you remain single past your 35th birthday, the entire Hayes family fortune goes to charity. Your grandfather's will is ironclad. Nathaniel's jaw clenched. The old man had always been controlling, but this felt like revenge from beyond the grave. How could he find a wife in 30 days when he had spent the last decade avoiding any serious relationship? His phone buzzed with another message from his assistant. 3 more gold diggers called today. The news about your inheritance requirement leaked to the press. Perfect. Now every fortune hunter in the city would be throwing themselves at him. The unexpected conversation 3 floors below. Carmen Silva quietly cleaned the guest bathrooms, her mind racing with worry. Her 8-year-old daughter Sophia had been diagnosed with a rare heart condition that required surgery costing $200,000, even with insurance. The family portion was crushing. She had worked for the Hayes family for 2 years, invisible to the billionaire who barely acknowledged her presence. Carmen preferred it that way. Rich men like Nathaniel Hayes lived in a different world, one where people like her only existed to serve. As she finished cleaning, her phone rang. The hospital billing department again. Mrs. Silva, we need to discuss payment arrangements for Sophia's surgery. The procedure cannot wait much longer. Carmen's voice cracked. Please, I just need more time. I'm working extra shifts selling everything. I understand, but we need a commitment. Perhaps you could take out a loan. No bank will give me that kind of money. I clean houses for a living. Tears streamed down her face. She's just a little girl. There has to be something. Carmen didn't notice Nathaniel standing in the hallway, having returned early from his meeting. I'd come downstairs for coffee and overheard every word. The proposition the next morning. Carmen arrived at work with red-rimmed eyes. She had spent the night researching every possible option from crowdfunding to medical assistance programs. Nothing would work fast enough. Carmen, she jumped, startled by Nathaniel's voice. He never spoke to her directly. Yes, Mr. Hayes. I need to speak with you privately. My office. Carmen's heart pounded. Had she done something wrong? Was he firing her because he overheard her personal call? Nathaniel's office was intimidating with its mahogany desk and wall of awards. He gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing, wrapping her cleaning apron nervously around her hands. I understand your daughter needs surgery, he said without preamble. Carmen's cheeks burned with embarrassment. I'm sorry you heard that call, sir. My personal problems won't interfere. With my work, I promise. How much do you need? The question caught her off guard. Excuse me? The surgery, hospital bills, recovery costs, everything. What's the total amount? Carmen stared at him in confusion. I don't understand why you're asking. Nathaniel leaned forward because I have a proposal that could solve both our problems. He explained his inheritance situation, watching her eyes widen with each detail. When he finished, the room fell silent, except for the ticking of his grandfather's antique clock. You want me to marry you? Carmen whispered. For 6 months, purely business. You'll receive $300,000 up front for your daughter's medical expenses, plus another $200,000 when our marriage ends. All you have to do is play the role of my wife in public. Carmen sank into the chair, overwhelmed. This is crazy. Is it crazier than watching your daughter suffer because you can't afford to save her? The words stung because they were true. Carmen looked at this man she barely knew. This billionaire who could solve her biggest problem with what amounted to pocket change for him. What exactly would this marriage involve? The rules of engagement. Nathaniel pulled out a folder thick with legal documents. My lawyers have prepared a comprehensive agreement. You'll move into the penthouse guest suite. We'll attend social functions together, family gatherings, business events. To the outside world, We're a happily married couple through pages of legal language, and privately you maintain separate lives. You have your space. I have mine. No personal involvement beyond what's necessary for appearances. What about your family? Won't they be suspicious about a sudden marriage? My parents live in Europe. My sister will be thrilled I'm finally settling down for friends and business. Associates' love at first sight makes for a romantic story. Carmen thought about Sophia, currently staying with her grandmother while Carmen worked. The little girl had been a leap of faith that evening. Carmen sat in her tiny apartment, surrounded by medical bills and legal documents. Sophia was asleep in the next room, her breathing slightly. Labored from her condition, Carmen's mother called from Puerto Rico. "Mia, you sound stressed. How is Sophia?" "The surgery is next week, Mommy. Everything will be fine." But everything wouldn't be fine. Not unless Carmen signed the papers sitting on her kitchen table. As she thought about Nathaniel Hayes, this mysterious billionaire who barely seemed to notice her existence until yesterday. What kind of man was he really? Could she trust him? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Carmen, this is Nathaniel. I wanted you to know that regardless of your decision, I've already contacted the hospital to ensure Sophia's surgery proceeds as scheduled. Some things are more important than business contracts." Carmen stared at the message, tears forming in her eyes. He had already paid for Sophia's surgery with no guarantee she would agree to his proposal. She picked up a pen and signed the marriage contract. The next morning, Nathaniel Hayes and Carmen Silva would become husband and wife in a simple courthouse ceremony. What neither of them knew was that this business arrangement would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, trust, and the walls they had built around their hearts. As Carmen sealed the signed documents in an envelope, she whispered, a prayer to whatever forces governed impossible situations. In 30 days, she would be married to one of the most powerful men in America. The contract was signed. The deal was struck. But some agreements once made have a way of writing their own endings. The courthouse ceremony felt surreal to Carmen as she stood beside Nathaniel in a simple cream dress she had borrowed from her neighbor. He wore an expensive navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The judge's words seemed to echo from a distance as they exchanged rings that felt foreign on their fingers. "You may kiss the bride," the judge announced. Nathaniel hesitated for just a moment before giving Carmen a brief formal kiss on her cheek. To any observer, it might have seemed sweet and nervous. Only they knew the truth. "Congratulations, Mrs. Hayes," he whispered as they signed the certificate. "Mrs. Hayes?" Carmen Silva was now Carmen Hayes, at least on paper, moving into his world. The penthouse guest suite was larger than Carmen's entire apartment. Floor-tussling windows offered breathtaking views of the city, and the bathroom alone was bigger than Sophia's bedroom. Carmen felt like an intruder in this world of marble and crystal. "The staff has been informed that you're my wife now," Nathaniel explained as he showed her around. "They'll treat you accordingly." Carmen noticed how the other employees looked at her differently now. Yesterday she was invisible to Carmen, the housekeeper. Today she was Mrs. Hayes, the billionaire's mysterious new bride. Sophia arrived that afternoon after her successful surgery, still weak but smiling. Nathaniel had arranged for a private nurse and converted one of the spare bedrooms into a recovery room complete with every comfort a little girl could want. "Mommy, is this really our new house?" Sophia asked in wonder, looking at the enormous teddy bear Nathaniel had left for her. "For a little while," Mia Moore Carmen replied, not knowing how to explain the complicated truth. Their first test came 3 days later at a charity gala for children's hospitals. Carmen stared at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. Nathaniel had sent stylists who transformed her into someone who belonged in his world, at least on the surface. The emerald green gown hugged her figure perfectly, and professional makeup highlighted features she had never considered beautiful. Diamond earrings that probably cost more than her car completed the look. "Look stunning," Nathaniel said when she emerged from her room. For a moment, something genuine flickered in his eyes before the business mask returned. The gala was overwhelming. Carmen found herself shaking hands with celebrities, politicians, and business moguls whose names she recognized from news headlines. Everyone wanted to meet Nathaniel's mysterious new wife. "So romantic how you two met," gushed Mrs. Patterson, a society matron dripping in jewels. "Love at first sight, I heard." Carmen glanced at Nathaniel, who smoothly took over. "Sometimes you just know when you found the right person." His hand found hers, squeezing gently. To everyone watching, it looked like an affectionate gesture. Carmen felt the calluses on his fingers and wondered what kind of work a billionaire did that left such marks. Unexpected moments. As weeks passed, cracks began to appear in their professional arrangement. Carmen discovered that Nathaniel worked 18-hour days, rarely eating proper meals. "Crystal. Nathaniel tells us you worked as a housekeeper before your marriage." The table fell silent. Carmen felt every eye on her, waiting to see if she would crumble under the pressure. "Yes, Mrs. Hayes. I cleaned houses to support my daughter after her father died." "How tragic," Eleanor continued. "And now you're married to our son after knowing him for what, a few weeks?" Carmen's temper flared. She had dealt with condescending wealthy women before, but never while pretending to be one herself. "I understand your concern," Carmen replied evenly. "If I had a son, I would want to make sure any woman he chose loved him for who he is, not what he has." Nathaniel watched this exchange with growing admiration. Carmen held her ground without backing down or losing her composure. "And do you?" Richard Hayes asked. "Love our son for who he is?" Carmen looked at Nathaniel, something shifting in her chest as she met his eyes. "Your son is the most honorable man I've ever met. He saved my daughter's life without asking for anything in return. He works harder than anyone I know, cares about his employees, and despite what people might think, he earned every bit of his success through determination and intelligence." The words came from somewhere deeper than the contract they had signed. Carmen realized with a start that she meant every word. Growing closer after his parents left, Nathaniel found Carmen on the terrace looking out over the city lights. "Thank you for defending me tonight," he said, joining her at the railing. "I meant what I said. Even the part about me being honorable." There was something vulnerable in his voice. Carmen turned to study his profile in the moonlight. Especially that part. They stood in comfortable silence, the sounds of the city far below. For the first time since their marriage began, the space between them felt smaller. "Can I ask you something?" Carmen said. "What happened to your hands? You have calluses that don't match your lifestyle." Nathaniel looked down at his hands, surprised by her observation. "I restore vintage cars in my spare time. It's my escape from all this." He gestured toward the penthouse. Carmen smiled. "I would never have guessed that. There's a lot you don't know about me." "We have time," she said, then caught herself. They had time until the contract ended. But what happened after that? The shift, as their third month together progressed, the lines between pretending and reality began to blur. Nathaniel started coming home earlier, joining Carmen and Sophia for dinner. He taught Sophia card games and helped with her homework, his face lighting up at her laughter. Carmen found herself looking forward to their morning coffee conversations. Nathaniel would share stories about his business challenges, and she would offer perspective from her different world. One evening, Sophia fell asleep between them while watching a movie. As Nathaniel carefully carried the little girl to her room, Carmen felt her heart skip. This man who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions was gentle as silk with her daughter. "She's lucky to have you as a mother," he said when he returned. "She's lucky to have you in her life too, even if it's temporary." The word temporary hung heavy between them. Their contract had 3 months remaining, but neither wanted to acknowledge what that meant. As part 2 drew to a close, Carmen realized the most dangerous thing possible had happened. She was falling in love with her fake husband, and she suspected he might be feeling the same way. But with money, contracts, and different worlds between them, Could anything real survive? When the pretending ended 2 weeks before their contract was set to expire, everything changed. Carmen was organizing Nathaniel's home office when she discovered a folder labeled with her name. Inside were photographs, news articles, and what looked like a private investigator's report dating back 2 years. Her hands trembled as she read the documents. Nathaniel had been watching her long before he ever offered the marriage contract. He knew about Sophia's condition months in advance, knew about her financial struggles, even knew her work schedule and daily routines. The office door opened behind her. "Carmen, I can explain." Nathaniel's voice was tight with panic. She turned around, holding the folder like evidence of a crime. "Explain what? That you've been stalking me for 2 years? That this whole marriage was planned? It's not what you think." "And what is it, Nathaniel?" "'Cause it looks like you researched me like a business acquisition." Ran his hands through his hair, the composed billionaire facade crumbling. "I first saw you at the hospital 18 months ago. You were in the children's ward with Sophia reading to her while she had tests done. You were so gentle, so loving, even though you were clearly terrified." Carmen stared at him. "You were at the hospital. My foundation donates heavily to children's medical programs. I was there for a board meeting." Nathaniel moved closer, his voice desperate. "I couldn't with fantasy. That's where you're wrong." He stood up, moving closer. "I fell in love with the way you sing to Sophia when you think no one is listening. I fell in love with how you help Maria with her English homework after your shift ends. I fell in love with your strength, your kindness, your fierce protection of everyone you care about." Carmen's eyes filled with tears. "But you manipulated everything. How can I trust anything between us is real? Because the way I feel when you smile at me across the breakfast table is real. The way my heart stops when you laugh at Sophia's jokes is real. The way I lie awake at night wishing this marriage was more than a contract is real." She wanted to believe him, wanted to throw herself into his arms and forgive everything. But trust, once broken, wasn't easily repaired. "I need time to think," she whispered. "Carmen, please." I said, "I need time." The decision that night, Carmen walked the city streets until dawn. Her mind churned with everything she had learned. Sophia was safe, healthy, and happy. The marriage contract would end in 2 weeks. She would have enough money to start a new life anywhere she chose. But leaving felt like tearing her heart in half. She found herself at the small church where she had prayed desperately for Sophia's healing just months earlier. The same elderly priest was there preparing for morning mass. "You look troubled, my child," Father Miguel said in Spanish. Carmen poured out the whole story. This impossible situation of love, built on deception and contracts built on genuine need. The question is not whether he manipulated the circumstances. The priest said gently, "The question is whether his love for you is real now, and whether yours is real for him. How can I know for sure? Love requires a leap of faith always. The only difference here is that you know the risks up front, confrontation." Carmen returned to the penthouse to find Nathaniel in his workshop, violently dismantling an engine with more force than necessary. His knuckles were bleeding from scraping them against metal. "You're going to hurt yourself," she said from the doorway. He looked up, his eyes red, rimmed with exhaustion. "I've already hurt what matters most." Carmen entered the workshop. This space revealed so much about the man behind the billionaire image. Tools hung in precise order, but current projects showed the passionate, hands-on person he became when no one was watching. "Show me," she said. "Show you what? Show me who you really are when you're not trying to manage outcomes or control situations." Nathaniel wiped his hands on a rag, studying her face. "I don't know how. Start with the truth. All of it." She took a shaky breath. "I've been alone my entire life. My parents were never around. I had no real friends, just business associates. Building my company was the only thing I knew how to do successfully." Carmen sat down on a workbench listening. When I saw you with Sophia that day, you looked like everything I never knew I wanted. A family, real love, someone who chose to be there. Not because of money or status, but you used money to get me there anyway. I did. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. His voice cracked. I was so afraid you would never choose someone like me without incentive that I created the incentive myself. Carmen was quiet for a long moment. What happens now? The contract expires in 12 days. You take the money, start your new life with Sophia. I go back to being alone. But at least I'll know I saved the two people who matter most to me. And if I wanted to stay, Nathaniel's head snapped up. What if I wanted to stay? Not because of money or contracts, but because somewhere in the middle of this mess, I fell in love with you too. The new beginning hope flickered in Nathaniel's eyes, quickly replaced by caution. Carmen, you don't owe me anything. I manipulated the situation. Stop. She stood up, moving closer. You were wrong to investigate me. Wrong to engineer this whole arrangement. But you were also right about one thing. What's that? I never would have given you a chance otherwise. Not because of who you are, but because I would never have believed someone like you could genuinely care about someone like me. Nathaniel reached out tentatively, his fingers barely brushing her cheek. I more than care about you. I love you, Carmen. Not the idea of you, not the fantasy, but you. Your stubbornness, your fierce independence, the way you make the best coffee in Manhattan. How you've made this sterile penthouse feel like a home. Carmen leaned into his touch. I love you too. The real you who works with his hands and worries about his employees and reads bedtime stories to my daughter like she's his own. What are you saying? I'm saying let's tear up the contract and start over. No money, no timelines, no conditions. Just two people figuring out if they can build something real together. 6 months later, the real wedding, the small ceremony in